Well, welcome back to Shed World. It's been a little while since I picked up the video camera. I'm afraid I get totally outshone when it comes to using a video camera by my very talented son-in-law and daughter, who makes lots of interesting how to crochet videos. This is definitely not a how-to video, but it's just something I thought some people might be interested in seeing how I've improved a very ancient chop saw by creating a chop saw station. I won't claim that this idea is original. I picked the idea up from watching New Yankee Workshop videos, and Norm Abrahams, the guru there, he made one, but a very much bigger version that really would stretch the whole length of my very old and rather dilapidated shed, which is absolutely full of bits and pieces, and there wouldn't be any room. So I'll just move the camera around a little bit, and I'll talk you through some of the elements of it and give you an idea of some of the problems I found and why I needed to make one. In keeping with my philosophy of using reclaimed timber wherever I can, and trying to avoid buying new, some people say it's just because I'm mean. As you know, I make lots of birdhouses and decorate them, so I do need to buy rough, and I tend to use scrap fencing timber for this. The stone kickboards are the best, but they're extremely rough and uneven, and obviously need to be sorted out. So I very recently bought this, yeah, I did actually buy something, planer, surface planer, which does the job admirably. It was very cheap, and I was rather suspicious, being of the old school. I tend to think that tools have to and often do cost a lot of money, but so far so good. This has certainly done the job by turning rough cut sawn timber into timber which is surface, certainly good enough for me to then decorate, hope you can see that, and make look rather decorative for birdhouses and bird feeders. To construct the bird feeders, I need to make lots of cuts, both mitered cuts, normally at 20 degrees, and obviously angle cuts for the roofing sections, etc. And this old saw, which certainly I bought, I think at a car boot sort of sale price, admirably. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this without my bulk getting in the way, but it's a straightforward operation. I can turn the saw to measured degrees to give me a cut, and just bring the saw down and cut at the degraded angle. There's a guide on here which is pretty accurate actually, although I do sometimes check it with a precision guide, certainly if I'm making something more elaborate than a birdhouse. I'll just reset that to 90 degrees. It also has a quite a clever miter function, which means that I can tip the blade right the way through to 45 degrees for making miter cuts, which again are very useful, particularly if I'm making pitch roofs and things like that for the birdhouses. One of the problems with just a small chop saw like this is that they often come with an extension that slides out from this aluminium base, but unfortunately they're never accurate, and they tend to bend and wobble around, and to be honest they're more trouble than they're worth. So creating the little station that this fits on just with scrap wood. I mean, it's a plywood base that's been stiffened. I'll show you some of the blocks in a minute. And making it very secure so that the saw can't move in that direction. One of the problems you've got to do is to make sure that this is flush, because obviously when you fit a piece of wood on, you don't want it to be dropping off. And although this is only quite a short extension from there to, I suppose it's about a foot, I suppose, maybe just over, it's certainly enough, because even if you had, say, a 2-meter board on there, that gives it quite a lot of support just while you're trimming. And obviously you can lock down the piece of wood you're using with a little wedge like that, just to hold it steady. I'll just move that out of the way so we can talk a bit more about the machine itself. So, having ensured that you've got it flat on both sides, you then have to ensure that this piece obviously runs absolutely parallel with the base plate or back plate of the chop saw. And to do that, all I did was I just put a steel that went right the way along, wedged against there so it was square to this, and that is pretty square, and then literally just slid this backwards and forwards until I got it absolutely plumbed, and then clamped it, dived underneath and bunged some screws in. You'll notice these technical terms like bung some screws in, but that's probably about as far as my joinery skills go. There's a plate here, which I'll indicate with reaching around the camera with this, which buttresses up against the securing point there, and there's another plate here with a little angled piece just to make sure that the saw, when you take it out, it can slide back in and will become plumb again with this edge. Obviously you'll have to, maybe as time goes by, I might have to fettle it as this wears or rubs with a little shim now and again, because it is really important, as I've said, to make sure that that is square. Otherwise, logic would explain, sorry if that's juttering around a bit, but if you don't do that, when the saw is used to make a cut, I hope you can see that, that's tight up against there. That edge I've used, which I might show another time, there in fact you can probably see, I've put that through my homemade joiner, which ensures that is a straight edge, so that goes up there nice and tight. So when I make this cut, that will be square, or squared to the angle that I make the cut, which is really one of the major features of a chop saw, because however hard you try, if you're a bit ham-fisted like I am with a saw, it's very difficult, even if you draw a nice square line, to saw it to a straight edge. I can hear people jeering and saying, oh, you should go back to school and learn how to do it. But I'm afraid that sort of accuracy with a handsaw was something I never mastered. A chisel, slightly different, but a handsaw, I'm afraid, can be a bit off. Another feature which I thought would help me along the way, as you can imagine, making bird houses and things, you tend to have the same cut repeated over and over again. So what I've done is I've just created, with a clamp and a dead straight edge here, a little MDF block that I can slide up and down, and obviously by taking a careful measurement from the saw blade, say to there, just slide that up to there, lock it in place, and then every time I bring the saw down, I'm making the cut, repeating it over and over again. And whether it's exact to the measurement, at least every piece you've cut will be the same, and that means less sanding and less fettling when the time comes for assembly. I might put some adhesive tape measure, which I find quite useful, on here, and obviously make it zeroed at the blade, and that may help if I'm doing, shall we say, a piece 90 centimeters long. I can count back, see 90, and just start off making my cut. Again, it just saves time with the tape measure, although as my Norm Abrahams, the guy who certainly came up with this station, would say, it's one of his regular sayings: measure twice, cut once. Wish I always did that. The construction, well, it's extremely simple. This was quite a large chunk of old fence post, I suppose it was originally, which I used my brand new surface planer to plane down to a more acceptable dimension. Why I took it below and surfaced it rather than just cutting that to the exact dimension is that obviously dragging stuff across here, this is a smooth MDF. It'll be easier to slide over and keep a smoother surface on, but obviously this softer pine will wear with time, and it just becomes a bit of a bore if I've then got to make another one in the future. Just backed it with some MDF, trapped it in square. That was a bit of a fiddle, but made sure that this upright was absolutely square, because otherwise you're going to get that sort of play when you're pushing up against a piece of wood to make a nice square cut. This is just an old piece of marine ply that I had left over from making some owl boxes, and the MDF I think was from a cabinet that I made for somebody. So as you can see, I'm definitely trying to keep my costs down. I suppose if you went out and bought the timber, you'd be looking at maybe £50 or so, but as you know, I like to recycle things, and I definitely don't like to pay modern prices for timber which is often not renewable. So there you are, that's it. Simple, straightforward, really made it in an afternoon from scrap, but I'm sure, well, I've already done one or two cuts on it. It's certainly going to help me with the cutting out. I mean, I really enjoy the decorating of the birdhouses, you know, with my leaves and Celtic patterns and dragons and things, but you've got to make them to start with, so it just speeds up the process. Well, thanks very much. I hope this hasn't proven to be a totally nerdy video, but well, you know, Shed World, we enjoy being a nerd in Shed World. So that's it. Thanks very much for paying attention. If anybody is interested, you can always contact me via Meadowcraft Workshop, which is a website I've got, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody was interested in trying to make one themselves, or equally if anybody has any good ideas of how to improve it further. So thanks again, and probably make another couple of videos in the near future. So that's it. All the best. Have a good bank holiday weekend from Shed World.